Hey there, welcome to the Sweet Georgia Weaving Channel. I am Felicia from Sweet Georgia Yarns, and today I'm going to be talking about this Ashford Brooklyn 4-shaft table loom. I'm very excited to share this loom with you because it's a great option for all kinds of weavers, and we're going to talk about all of that in this video. I want to share with you what this loom is, what it isn't, and who might enjoy using this loom. Now, working from memory, I believe that this loom was introduced by Ashford as a new loom, completely new loom, in June 2023. I remember being super excited about this loom, and I was telling everybody at the studio that I think that this is a game changer. And so I ordered one pretty much right away, and then I didn't get around to trying to assemble it until about September 2023. And so that's when I recorded a whole bunch of video of me assembling this loom, but I never got a chance to share the video because then we got very busy with moving the Sweet Georgia studio to our new location. So let's talk about what is the Ashford Brooklyn 4-shaft table loom. Now, the Ashford description of this loom basically says it all. This loom has been designed to be an economic stepping stone for rigid heddle weavers and all other new weavers who are ready to expand their weaving skills and explore the wonderful world of multi-shaft weaving. It makes weaving multi-shaft patterns simple and easy. The Brooklyn 4-shaft table loom provides new and experienced weavers with all the features they need to weave amazing fabric. So we're going to break down this description a little bit for you. The Ashford Brooklyn is a 4-shaft table loom, meaning that it is a multi-shaft loom that allows weavers to explore tons of weave structures. And so I've said this before, but I have a few 8-shaft looms, and I'm almost always only using 4 of the 8 shafts. There's already so much to explore with weaving that I'm still playing with 4-shaft patterns. Pretty much everything that I've taught in the School of Sweet Georgia has been on a 4-shaft loom. And so that includes weaving overshot, weaving crackle, summer and winter, twills, and double weave. In fact, I demonstrated how to weave 2 layers of cloth at the same time on an Ashford table loom using just 4 of the 8 shafts that it came with. Now, just for comparison, this is a rigid heddle loom. This one is from Shacked. This is the cricket loom. Now, with a rigid heddle loom, you get by default 2 shafts, right? So you can lift up your heddle in this position and you get 1 shed, and then you move it to the down position and you get a different shed. Okay, so 2 shafts. Of course, with some of the rigid heddle looms, you can add a second heddle to the rigid heddle loom, or you can add a set of pickup sticks to your setup and create lots of different sheds so that you can weave lots of different weave structures on your rigid heddle loom. So our rigid heddle instructor, Amanda Wood, she specifically teaches all of these skills in our rigid heddle classes on the School of Sweet Georgia. So you can make your rigid heddle loom, weave plain weave, weave twill, waffle weave, lace weaves, overshot, double weave, you name it. But it is a little bit less straightforward than using a multi-shaft loom. Basically, with a rigid heddle loom, you're adding the second heddle and the pickup sticks to do the job of what these shafts would do. So I am a big supporter of learning to weave on a multi-shaft loom because you can logically access all of the shafts and explore all sorts of different weave structures from the start. However, I understand the challenges of going straight to a multi-shaft loom. I mean, for one, the size. This is definitely bigger than the rigid heddle loom or the cricket loom that I had here. So this is already a pretty compact table loom. It is 16 inches wide in terms of weaving width. And I mean, I can have it sit on my dining table. I can have it sit on the island in my kitchen. I can pick it up and move it around as needed. So if I happen to be weaving at the dining table and then people are going to come over, I can just pick it up and move it to another room. So it's pretty easy. Now, with Ashford's more expensive table looms, you can collapse the castle. So this whole piece here is one solid piece on this loom. On the more expensive table looms, you can actually collapse the castle and sort of drop it down and make the whole loom go flat. And so that makes the loom much more compact and portable. And so I have the Ashford 8-shaft table loom, 16-inch weaving width, and I can fold it down completely and have it flat, and so it looks almost like the size of a suitcase, and I can stick it in my car and take it to places. I can also take this 4-shaft Brooklyn into my car as well, but I have it sit in its own seat, or it takes up about half of my trunk space. And so I think this highlights what Ashford says in the description. This loom is designed to be an economic stepping stone for rigid heddle weavers and new weavers. So this loom is made out of beech, hardwood, and plywood. And so the beech parts, you can sort of tell. So the beech parts are sort of this front bar, the cloth beam is beech as well. This is beech. All of these sort of horizontal parts, all of the levers, all of these are beech as well. And so these match basically the other more expensive table looms as well. But the Brooklyn has this castle, like this one giant piece here that is made out of unfinished plywood. And the part that holds up the beater is also unfinished plywood. So yeah, basically the sides of the loom are unfinished plywood. It's all cut in one piece and it does not fold down or collapse. And so it's sort of the combination of the materials and the construction, like the not folding down flat and being cut in one piece and being made out of plywood, that is what makes the Brooklyn less expensive. So as a comparison, the 4-shaft 16-inch wide Brooklyn loom is $685 US or 865 Canadian. The standard Ashford 4-shaft table loom only comes in 24 inches wide, and that is $1,045 US. And then the 8-shaft table loom comes in 16, 24, and 32-inch weaving widths. And the 16-inch wide version, that's the one that I have at the studio that I'm using for weaving waffle weave right now. That one also starts at $1,045 US or 1,245 Canadian. So and then just for fun, the 16-shaft table loom only comes in 24 inches wide, and that one costs $1,750 US or 2,060 Canadian. So looking at all those prices, I think that $685 US or 865 Canadian is a pretty reasonable price for a brand new 4-shaft table loom. Now, when I first started learning how to weave, I started on a used Leclerc 4-shaft Dorothy table loom. And I checked, and that loom currently retails for about $810 US new. Now, very often you can find table looms on the used marketplaces for a few $100s, but they come in various states of repair. You might be getting something really old, you might be getting something that needs a lot of repair or restoration. And so having a brand new loom is always nice. Now, this loom itself comes with the 10-dent stainless steel reed. You can see here I am weaving the kaleidoscope scarf, which actually specifies a 12.5 or a 12-dent reed. And so because I only had the 10-dent reed, I used a reed substitution chart to figure out exactly how to slay the reed to get the right density. So in this case, I basically took all my warp ends and I slayed 1, 1, 1, 2. So in some of these slots, I have 2 warp ends coming through. And so that's how I'm able to use the 10-dent reed for lots of other things. If you wanted, you could slay 2 ends per dent, and then you would be getting 20 ends per inch. If you slayed 1, 2, 1, 2, then you could get 15 ends per inch. So the 10-dent reed is actually really versatile and works great for fingering weight or slightly heavier fingering weight yarns. I've actually woven with this 10-dent reed with light DK weight yarn at 10 ends per inch, and it works great. And we'll talk about set more in another video. So there are 320 Texsolve heddles here divided over the 4 shafts. So it is 80 heddles per shaft and the 16-inch weaving width. So with that number of heddles and this weaving width, you basically have enough to weave 20 ends per inch across the entire width of the loom, which is great. So 20 ends per inch is great if you want to use something like 8-2 cotton in a twill pattern, make some kitchen towels. That is perfect for this. Texsolve heddles are also great. It's my favorite thing because they're really, really quiet. They don't kind of jangle when you change sheds and things like that. And also they're really nice and easy to thread. With basically all of my looms, I've converted all of the heddles to Texsolve heddles. So this is great that they just come with. Now, the loom also comes with 2 stick shuttles and some accessories like lee sticks and warp packing sticks and a threading hook. But of course, I kind of skip over these ones and I use my own weaving tools. I have come to prefer the closed bottom Leclerc boat shuttle, and I'm also using the Harrisville threading hook these days. Of course, I am 100% influenced by Laura Fry, who is a master weaver here in Canada, and she's taught a number of classes for us at the School of SweetGeorgia as well. She was a production weaver for over 40 years and recommended these two tools to me, and I've been sort of using them consistently ever since. Now, I've been using Ashford products since I started in the fiber arts. My very first spindle was from Ashford. My very first spinning wheel was from Ashford. It was the Ashford Joy. And now I'm also using the Ashford e-spinner. I've used the Ashford Table Looms. So I have used a number of their products, and I've always found that they are very, very well made and easy to put together. The instructions are also very, very clear. There's good photos. You just need to keep yourself very, very organized and follow the steps, just step by step. I find one of the things that I need to do is I need to take all the hardware out of the bags and sort them all by shape and size and compare them to the instructions, because sometimes I think when I started this, I put in the wrong size screws because I wasn't really checking. So you have to make sure. There's a number of places where you have to screw things in. So you just need to make sure that you're using the right size screw for the spot that it needs a screw. The one thing that turned this assembly from sort of like a 1 or 2 hour session into like 2 weeks of assembly was that I wanted to finish all of the wood before assembling. Now, all of the beech hardwood and the plywood parts, they all come unfinished. So you can finish it however you like. Or if you want, you can just leave it unfinished if you don't want to bother with any of that. But for me, I actually really enjoy the process of finishing wood. And so I chose to finish all the pieces first. With all the history of the Shacked products that I've used in the past, everything that I remember from Shacked, my matchless spinning wheel, the looms, everything was finished with Danish oil. And so I definitely could have done that with this loom. You know, nice Danish oil. Yeah, I could have done Danish oil on this. But I had sort of just come through an experience of completely refinishing my vintage Leclerc fanny loom, and I finished that one from scratch. I sanded it down to bare wood and I refinished it completely. And I did that with a product called Osmo Polyx Satin Finish. And so that is an oil and wax product, and it's beautiful finish. I love that finish. And it makes a finish that's really hard wearing, and it gives a sort of like a little bit of a matte sheen to it. Not shiny, it's not shiny, it's just like a sheen to it. And I really, really loved it. So I used the leftover Osmo for this Ashford loom. And of course, you know, if you wanted to, you could sand it down in between coats and then add a little bit more and really, really smooth it out. Of course, you know, using a product for finishing the wood, it's kind of raised the grain a little bit. So, you know, the plywood sections feel a little bit rough, but I could always go through it with more sandpaper and then just kind of like finish it very lightly again. Now, you can choose to finish your loom with Ashford provides a product called Finishing Wax Polish, or you could use Danish oil, or you could use a lacquer, or you could use the Osmo Polyx, whatever you like. So that is about the wood finishing. Now let's talk about actually using the loom and weaving with the loom. My favorite part of this loom is that these shaft levers are basically exactly the same as the more expensive looms. Like the action on these levers is smooth. It's really light. It's easy to change sheds on this thing. These levers are fantastic. So your weaving experience, you know, pick by pick, changing the sheds is going to be pretty much the same as with some of the other Ashford table looms. The other thing that I like about this loom is that the beam to beam depth is actually quite it's quite long. You need a good amount of room to weave. Otherwise, you are constantly kind of like fighting, you know, being able to have enough room to put your shuttle through the shed, and then you're advancing the cloth a lot. And so having a good amount of space up here is good. And then having a good amount of space behind your heddles is also good, because that's what allows you to have the space. It's like geometry. It's having the space to make a bigger shed. So that beam to beam depth, I feel like, is really actually pretty important. The other thing is like dressing the loom is relatively easy. There is one quirky thing, which I'm not a super fan of, is that when you load your warp onto the back apron rod, you kind of have to divide your warp, and then you have to tie it on the sides. It's not my favorite thing. I dress my looms all back to front, always back to front. So maybe it would be different if you were to dress your loom in a different way. The other thing that I found is that the ratchets for the front and the back beam are made out of nylon, and so they make kind of a loud clicky noise. And so I didn't really like that at first, but it is the same with all of the Ashford looms, so I'm kind of used to it now. Now, one of the trickiest parts of using this loom is the beater. So this has a nice overhead beater, and it has this feature that they're calling auto bounce back, meaning that there's some elastic here. So this elastic cord pulls the beater back and away from your fell line. So theoretically, all you need to do is to swing the beater forward to beat and then let it go. So it just returns back to its original spot. You just pull it to beat and then let go, and it'll go back to where it's supposed to go. So that's great, but I wish that there was a way to like remove the beater entirely so that I could thread the heddles. I'm sure that you could get, you know, all of your tools out and sort of unscrew this part, remove this entire beater, but then you have to unhook the elastic, so you have to untie the knot that's holding the elastic in. It's just a bit finicky, but I wish that there was some way that I could somehow swing this beater forward, up, and over top of the loom to get it out of the way so that I can thread the heddles properly. But the way it was here, I ended up having to tie the beater to the front beam, and then I put my arms in here to basically thread all of the heddles. So it's a bit awkward. The beater was kind of a little bit in the way. So that's the only thing that I wish would be different about this loom. So still talking about the beater, if you have a collection of reeds at home and some of your reeds are wider than this 16-inch weaving width, you can still use them with this loom. The reed will just kind of hang out on the sides, on the ends, over the edges, but it will still work. So if you happen to have a reed that's like 24 inches wide, then you just have like a number of inches, maybe, you know, a few inches on each side. Still works. And then Ashford has also recently released a shuttle race that you can attach to the beater. And I believe that this can be attached to all of their looms, and it's available separately. So you can add something here at the bottom here that serves as your shuttle race. So that way when you open your shed, you will have something to sort of support these yarns and then your shuttle going across. Without a shuttle race, if you're using sort of like a wider set, very often your shuttle can kind of like dip down below, and then you're fixing things throughout. But otherwise, you know, I'm just really careful. I'm not using a shuttle race here. I'm just really careful when I put my shuttle in through the shed. So yeah. So that is it. I think this loom is fantastic. I think the action of the shaft levers is what sells it for me. I love this small weaving width. I think it's great for samples or scarves or even kitchen towels, a lot of home products. You could also weave double weave on it, so you're not always entirely limited to this width. But the fact that it doesn't collapse or that it's made of plywood, these I think are all sort of aesthetic things. I think it's still portable enough to put in your car. You can haul it away for a weaving workshop or take it with you for a weekend. So I think that this is a great way to step up from, say, a rigid heddle loom if you're thinking about that. If you're thinking about exploring more weave structures, this is a great place to start. So if you're thinking about learning multi-shaft weaving, everything that you learn with a loom like this can translate to a bigger floor loom or a table loom with more shafts. This is really just a starting point. So if you are interested in this loom, our SweetGeorgia shop does sell this loom, but we can only ship within Canada. We can't ship internationally. So if you're Canadian and you wanted this loom, you can find it at shop.sweetgeorgiayarns.com. Now, if you're in the US, you can find this loom at weaving vendors in the US like justyarn.com. Now, if you are outside the US or Canada, you'll need to find a vendor in your country. And that's just kind of how Ashford works. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you found it helpful. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. And if you like this video, please do hit the like button and subscribe to see more more weaving specific videos. This is our new channel from SweetGeorgia that is going to be dedicated entirely to weaving and all the things that we can make on our looms. So that's it for this one. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. All right, bye for now.